Hey everybody, I wanted to do a quick video about quote sandwiches. Now this is something that some of you might have done before, but I really wanted to just re-explain how to use quote sandwiches effectively in your papers, especially in the body paragraphs. That's really in the first essay. It's all about body paragraphs. It becomes a little bit more about the literature review in the next paper when we're talking about the qualitative research. But quote sandwiches are going to come into play in every single paper that you write this term. So I need you to really understand how to use quote sandwiches in order to present other people's information along your information. This is really focused on what we call synthesis, all right, which is the fusion, bringing together your ideas, your words, bringing together the words of somebody else and incorporating them into a cohesive document or a cohesive essay. Okay, that's what synthesis is all about, and that's what quote sandwiches help us to accomplish. Now, synthesis is kind of a research term, so if you're thinking about how this is going to be assessed in the class, it's largely going to come into play when we're talking about sourcing and citations, because they're more closely linked with that. Sometimes they will also cause rhetorical issues if you don't have effective synthesis, because I won't know necessarily whose words are yours, which words are yours and which words belong to somebody else, which words are being borrowed. So for that reason, quote sandwiches, this is what I want you to know. Basic rules for quoting information in a paper or in anything, really. Never begin a paragraph with a quote. Never open with a quote. I need to know who's speaking, right? I need to know whose information this is. Having a beginning quote at the beginning of a paragraph leaves a lot of questions. Who are we quoting, right? I don't even know what the context is, and all of a sudden I have a quote. So it leaves us with a little bit of work to do. Sometimes you'll have an epigraph or something like that at the beginning. That's a different thing. We're talking about the actual writing of your paper, okay? So do not ever begin a paragraph with a quote, because I need to set up some context first. The next rule, rule number 2, never begin a sentence with the quote. Again, it comes to providing context for us, all right? I need to know who's speaking in order to make sense of what this quote is and what it's going to accomplish and what it's going to do. And then 3, you have the end of paragraph, right? One of the temptations is after you drop a quote in, one of the biggest issues I've had with students over the past decade is that we don't have enough information or enough clarification of that. Sometimes if you're quoting an academic article or if you're quoting some industry professional, there might be some additional jargon in there, or it might be unclear what that quote is actually communicating. So I need a little additional clarification in your own words. So I need you to explain the quote or explain the paraphrased information to me, so that way I can make sense of it, okay? And that's really what this is all about. Never end a paragraph without clarifying in your own words. When we think about quote sandwiches, they really are kind of like a sandwich, right? If you think about like any kind of sandwich, you have the bun, and then you have the stuffings, right? Whether it be, a veggie wrap, or whether it be, a burger or anything. This is the borrowed information. That's someone else's words. And this is all you, okay? This is the best way, and you can kind of see how the proportions are kind of there. You want to have a balance between things. You don't want to have too much of a quote. You don't want to have too much information in the middle that you're borrowing, because you're going to need to make context of that. You're going to need to provide context for that in your own words, all right? So if I were writing a paragraph about, the use of incongruity in Christopher Titus's stand-up routine, or in the television show. I'll do the television show, okay? I might have a paragraph that introduces the subject. So this is where I'm going to start to define something. We start with what we would say a topic sentence, right? So let me see if I have enough colors here. You have a topic sentence that sets the stage for what we're going to accomplish. let's just say I'm defining incongruity. Incongruity is a comedy device common in television shows today. Okay? That's a topic sentence. The topic sentence is in my own words explaining what the significance of incongruity is, or why incongruity is relevant to this conversation. Now, I can jump in here and I can say, according to, I think it was Rappaport, probably misspelled that, I think, maybe. And then I would have the year of the citation there, comma, insert quote, incongruity is, and maybe I shouldn't direct quote it, maybe it's paraphrased, but incongruity is employment of absurdity absurdity to make a point. It's not a perfect quote, but we'll just pretend it is for now. Incongruity is an employment of absurdity to make a point. Something like that. Now I have my end quote, and then I have my page number, and we'll say 17 for argument's sake. Okay? I don't have it all in front of me right now. I'm kind of going off the cuff. But here you have the topic sentence that's in my own words. And now I have borrowed information. Okay? The interesting thing I want to draw attention to is things like this. According to Rappaport. Now, this is what we would call a signal phrase. A signal phrase is something that we use to inform the reader that we're going to be shifting gears. I'm not going to use my own words. I'm going to borrow somebody else's words. Or I'm not going to just pull information out of the air like I just did here. I'm actually going to paraphrase information, and I'm going to cite a source. And so I'm going to say, according to the CDC, or according to so-and-so, this is blah. I have a signal phrase that tells me that this is about to shift into somebody else's information. Okay? Now I have my topic sentence, I have my quote, and now I'm going to go back into the explanation. Okay? In this case, I would say things that appear out of place can often be considered ridiculous by the reader or audience, right? I like audience better. Incongruity is simply putting things out of place, obviously out of place, to illustrate a point. Okay? Period. Boom. So here we have a quote sandwich. It's not perfect, it's not great, but it at least gives you a rough idea of what I'm looking for when you structure your body paragraphs. You need to start with that topic sentence that illustrates the idea that you're trying to get across in this paragraph. The purpose of this paragraph is to define something, incongruity. Okay? That means the next paragraph that I'm going to expect to find is going to be about define or exemplifying. So it's going to provide an example of incongruity. Does that make sense? I hope that makes sense. That's what I'm looking for when you stack your body paragraphs in the humor analysis. I'm looking for that kind of a structure. The topic sentence tells me exactly what I'm going to engage with, and that means everything that I talk about from here on in, or throughout until the end of the paragraph, is going to be focused on getting at that idea of incongruity. What does it mean, right? So I borrowed a quote. I gave you a signal phrase to illustrate that I am borrowing this information, and now I have the citation that allows me to find the original source, and now I have my explanation. Okay, so in this case, you can see I never began the paragraph with a quote. I didn't even begin the sentence with the quote. I had a signal phrase that led into it. And then I didn't end it right here. A lot of times there's that temptation to end it right after that citation because we think, hey, they did all the work for us, I'm good. And actually, that's not the case. I need a little further explanation so that way I can make total sense of what we're trying to accomplish here. Okay, so don't begin the paragraph with the quote. Don't begin the sentence with the quote. Need the signal phrase. And don't end without further explanation. And if you do this the right way, you're going to have the quote sandwich. My information, my words, someone else's words, my words again. Okay. So I hope that that provides a little explanation about what quote sandwiches are, how they function. If you have any questions about that, go ahead and post those in the general inquiry forum. Otherwise, happy writing, happy reading. I'll see you in the next one.